What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Knights of the Nerds Table. I'm your host, EJ, and I cannot wait to bring you the following review of Matt Reeves' The Batman. Now, this is going to be a spoiler discussion, so if you haven't seen the film yet, might want to go watch that first before watching this. But before you do anything, make sure you like this video, comment below after the video, make sure you subscribe, do all the things you're supposed to do with a YouTube video, all that good stuff. Anyway, let's get into this. Let's go. So for those who don't know, Batman is my favorite superhero. I don't know what it is about that Cape Crusader, but Bruce Wayne has always appealed to me, whether it was his campy Adam West phase, uneven and gothic versions of Schumacher and Burton, or the epic tales that Nolan and Snyder put together. I've always dug The Dark Knight, and this Batman is no different. Now, in his newest iteration, we have Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson's version of Gotham's Dark Knight, and this one is going to be more of an emo detective phase, so I cannot wait to jump into this with you guys. The first thing I want to say about this film is that it is beautifully shot. Like, there are so many scenes where you get to see just how pleasing to the eye the filmography is. There's tons of detail, and you can tell right from the beginning that Matt Reeves put a ton of thought into how his Gotham would look. It looks much more like New York City, like Gotham is kind of supposed to. Like, I would say 1980s, 1990s New York City. If you look at Schumacher's and Burton's Gotham, it doesn't really resemble any real city at all. It actually looks kind of fake. It has this gothic weird tone to it, whereas Nolan and Snyder were a little bit more grounded in their versions of Gotham. This one goes, I will always say, as far as how Gotham looks, it's my favorite iteration of how Gotham would actually look in real life. I love the way that Matt Reeves put this together. I can't wait to explore this Gotham even more in the coming years. Now, in addition, the score to this movie, perfecto. The main theme of the Batman is super satisfying. The dun 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 dun. Great, not super derivative either. So it definitely seems like there is some aspects going up for it that I've heard before. But for the most part, wasn't super derivative. It kind of stands on its own. So I like that quite a bit. Now, the plots in this movie is very exciting, very full of surprises, and kept the audience engaged, in my opinion. This movie, Batman is early in his career, cutting his teeth into his new fighting crime gig. Now, there's a serial killer called the Riddler who's out there kind of mysteriously offing political figures and people of power in Gotham. Well, that makes all the Gotham elites running scared, worrying if they're the next one to be killed off by the Riddler, especially if they're, not as scrupulous or have a little dirt on their hands.
My fellow Americans, I have not been entirely truthful with you. I did gagoogity that girl. I geschmoigitied her geflavity with my googus, and I am sorry.
If you're one of those individuals that are corrupt, the Riddler in this movie is coming to get you and reveal to the world your deeds. Along the way, Batman teams up with Catwoman, played by femme fatale Zoe Kravitz, and finds out that the corruption in Gotham runs very deep, much deeper than he probably realized, may even concern his own family. The performances in this movie are fantastic. Robert Pattinson truly plays an unhinged and unexperienced Bruce Wayne. There's no need for another origin film, another scene where you see Bruce Wayne's parents get shot down in an alley. Thomas and Martha Wayne don't need to get shot one more time. We just jump straight into it. Pattinson, and we're going to nickname him Battinson, I think, because we nicknamed Ben Affleck Batfleck. Christian Bale was Baleman, so I think Pattinson gets Battinson. Battinson picks up right after Batfleck left with a brutal and physically imposing Batman that beats the crap out of criminals. Like, I love it. He really has some of the best Batman action scenes that have ever been seen in Batman film history. Now, the warehouse scene in BVS finally now has some competition. The one thing I will criticize him a little bit, not necessarily him, but kind of the direction of the film, is that I really didn't care for his Bruce Wayne. He doesn't really put on the mask that you're supposed to, because Bruce Wayne is supposed to be the mask or the disguise for who Batman really is. And if you see Ben Affleck and Christian Bale in the past, they would have a distinct character arc where their characters would be very different from who the Batman is. This guy's not really like that. He goes around kind of sulky, shifting his shoulders around. The dude kind of looks like a bat. Just look at him. He's kind of pale. Yeah, looks like a bat, basically. Whereas, especially if you look at Ben Affleck and BVS, you remember that one scene where he's sneaking around Lex Luthor's house and he is caught by Lex Luthor's assistant, Grace. Grace catches him. He switches right back to being Bruce Wayne for a second. He says,
"I like those shoes."
It kind of jokes it off or whatever and becomes that jovial, carefree playboy. Christian Bale had the same thing going for him if you saw the Batman Begins and Dark Knight, where he goes around with models, European models all the time, gets thrown out of hotels, buys hotels apparently, because apparently you can just buy hotels when you put a check in the waiter's suit coat, and that buys it apparently. In Nolanverse, really sick. But yeah, they were both very charming and jovial as Bruce Wayne, whereas this guy is not so fun at all. He just kind of mopes a lot. So one criticism, but maybe we'll see that kind of fleshed out in years to come. So give us some time there. What this film really is an origin film for his villains. You see Paul Dano, who comes as the Riddler. He plays him really well. It's very top tier villain quality. Definitely joins the ranks of the greatest of Batman's rogue gallery on screen. Very comparable to Heath Ledger's Joker, in my opinion. He comes across as creepy, comes across as dangerous. You never know what he's going to do next. He really comes across as a modern day radical like Twitch streamer. I saw a lot of comparisons and similarities between him and like right-wing reactionaries like Nick Fuentes. He really thinks he's making Gotham a better place by revealing all these bad things or corrupt people in there. And so it's hinted that he is inspired by the radical example of Batman and feels that they are kind of the same side of the coin. As far as I'm concerned, he can join the ranks of the goats of Batman's rogue gallery like Heath Ledger, Tom Hardy's Bane, Ra's al Ghul, Liam Neeson. He's up there. Really does a great job. And as far as a rogue gallery goes, Batman always has the best rogue gallery. That's why we love him so much. And there's no other superhero in comic book history, in my opinion, that's as good as a rogue gallery as Batman. The one that's kind of close is Spider-Man, but not really close. Like that's the solidly second place. Like Batman's up here, Spider-Man's down here.
Inconceivable!
I know Josh may not like that, but he knows deep down in his heart that that's true too. Zoe Kravitz was a really fun addition to this movie. She plays kind of a sexy and alluring Catwoman, sometimes partnering alongside Batman, sometimes working against him, but always kind of having her own agenda. She doesn't have a ton of character development, in my opinion. That's kind of what my critique of her would be, but she was fun to be around. The one thing I was kind of surprised about this film, to be honest, is not Catwoman. She was done fine. We really didn't do a ton with the relationships between James Gordon and Batman and Alfred and Batman. Now, Gordon really didn't do that much. He wasn't central really in the story in the Burton and Schumacher eras either, but all he was capable of doing back then was really just, turning on the bat signal and asking for Batman. Jeffrey Wright isn't necessarily that useless, but he did very little besides cover and assist for Batman. In the Nolan series, he was used more as a way for the audience to kind of see what Gotham looked like to your regular day, everyday man. And I just like that approach to the character. And with Alfred, I just felt like Batman was just way too mean to Alfred at times. It kind of felt juvenile. But there are times where he says, "You're not my father."
You're not my dad!
I felt that in this time of their relationship, I felt that stage of Bruce Wayne's development, "You're not my father and I don't need to listen to you." I think he should have been done with that, but we're going to let that relationship grow. I know that there was that touching scene where, the Riddler, while targeting Bruce Wayne, actually hurts Alfred instead, and Alfred ends up in the hospital. They have a touching scene where they talk back and forth about the Wayne legacy. I liked it, but I felt like they hadn't built up that relationship enough to give you that tenderness that's actually needed. Like when Batman was going to save Alfred, I didn't feel the urgency in that moment because I hadn't seen him actually care for Alfred in any meaningful way. I seen Alfred care for him, but not him care for Alfred. That's my criticism. I can't get over this. So Colin Farrell's Penguin, that is insane. That's Colin Farrell. That makeup doesn't even make sense at this point with all the things he has on him. I mean, whatever they did there to put him in that situation, he did a great job. He plays a classic secondary mobster character. I absolutely love that about this character. He's kind of smarmy, kind of slimy, feels like he thinks he knows he's one step ahead. And you can kind of tell throughout the whole film that he's kind of trying to basically one-up Carmine Falcone, who's really the main crime boss in the film. And that was something that was pretty interesting for me to see. Now, Carmine Falcone in this film, he plays the main crime boss. And the one thing that I really enjoyed about this is that he gave a very Al Capone type of feel to them, or very classic mobster. And he talked with that kind of mobster vibe you can see from The Irishman or movies kind of similar like that. I enjoy that he viewed as somewhat as a reluctant father figure to Bruce Wayne because of the connection between him and Bruce Wayne's dad, and that he had some blackmail over Bruce Wayne's dad because Thomas Wayne had asked him while running for political office to take care of a reporter who was being a little too nosy about Martha Wayne's background, mental health background. When Carmine Falcone meant to take care of her problem, they mean,
"I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Don't worry about it. We got this on lock." That's kind of the guilt that Thomas Wayne carries for the rest of his life, but makes him kind of in debt and kind of dirty in the same way. I do like that fact of the film where we do make Bruce Wayne's parents' death. We don't see it, but we do talk about it. I like the fact that we don't make it a random mugging because, let's be honest, if these are the most famous people in the city, they're not going to be randomly mugged by some. The mugger's going to know who these people are. And it makes more sense for this to be politically motivated, that these people are dying because they're politically targeted than anything else. So I like that they gave that type of homage to that. What I'll say, I know what everyone's looking for me to say is, where does this really take us as far as the Batman goes? First of all, I have one more criticism before I get that. One more criticism of it. The last scene where we kind of see Batman fighting off the Riddler's army in quote unquote Madison Square Garden, wherever they might be. I liked the filmography there. I liked fight scenes. I liked what the message they were trying to give. Also, I was a little bit out of character for the Riddler to do that because the Riddler's whole thing this whole time was he was going to reveal evil in the city. That doesn't really reveal corruption in the city. That's just causing chaos, more Jokerish than anything else. I was always kind of worried going into it how people would differentiate what the Joker would do from what the Riddler would do, because they're two unique characters, but they have some similarities. A lot of times people write them in ways that doesn't differentiate them. So I forgive it though, even though it doesn't make sense because of how beautiful those scenes were, how fun it was, and how on edge it did make you. But yeah, I really love this film. The Sparkly Vampire actually gave us one of the best Batman portrayals of all time. It honors the brutality of Affleck, the goth of Burton, and the grounded realism of Nolan to really bring in about a great addition to the Dark Knight's filmography. Now, I give this film 9.5 shields. I really think this is a really good film. And if you want to compare it to some other films, I think it could be right on alongside The Dark Knight as far as if this is the best Batman film of all time. I still think I like The Dark Knight a little bit better because of some of the messages in there. But overall, this is a solid Batman film, and I can't wait to explore Gotham City and Matt Reeves' world even more. Matt Reeves is one of the goated directors, and I can't wait to see more of what he has in store for us. So really great stuff there. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching this review. What were your thoughts on the film? Definitely comment below just and let me know what you thought about the film. Tell me if this Batman is your favorite one ever. Maybe it sucks. Maybe you're like Ben Shapiro, you think this movie is bad. Don't be that guy. But anyway, I thought it was great, and I can't wait to talk about it with all my other friends and kind of explore this world even more. Once again, thank you for watching Knights of the Nerds Table. EJ out. Have a good one, guys.